It's time for Steve's Snapshots, the new segment right here on ARC Seattle that introduces you to some of the talented men and women behind the lens who show us the beauty of the Pacific Northwest.
And there is so much beauty around here, and every day like me, you're likely amazed by their talent. Some going to great lengths to capture that perfect shot or amazing piece of video that you see posted on social media. Joining us this morning from the Portland metro area is Chris Liedle. Chris, good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for being with us and talking about your work. So what's unique about your work in particular on top of landscape photography? I know that you specialize in surf and underwater photography. Explain how your passion for that work in particular started.
Yeah, well, Steve and Kelly, it's super interesting. Actually, this morning I woke up and Facebook Memories served me a memory of a photo that I took of my sister surfing in my hometown of San Diego in 2010. So I think that's about the time of when I first started getting into surf and underwater photography. But my photography story really started in 2013 when I was hired on as a TV reporter for a local TV station in Eugene. And the camera that my dad helped me purchase to produce my demo reel, which I'm sure is totally embarrassing, was no longer needed. The TV station, of course, they had their own camera equipment. And so as a person who loves the outdoors and who was a recent transplant at the time from San Diego to the beautiful Pacific Northwest, I took my camera everywhere with me on my hiking adventures to the coast. And, to be honest, I didn't know really what I was doing. I wasn't a very good photographer, but I learned from my mistakes. And over time, my photography progressed. I grew up surfing when I was 8 years old. And so my walls were plastered in surf magazines. And so I knew the technology of a surf housing or a water housing was out there. One thing I really didn't expect from photography was my love for it. I think many of the artists that you have on this program, and that's many of the photographers out there, this will resonate with them, is that when you're taking photos, you're forced to be mindful. You're forced to be in the present and taking in only what's in front of you and kind of tuning out the world around you. And so what started as really something that I wanted to capture my experiences and share moments with my friends and family back home in San Diego kind of turned into something as really a passion and an art form of mine. A few years later, I think it was 2017, I purchased my first surf housing. And ever since then, it's been by my side.
Oh, so cool. We're showing some of our viewers right now some of the best shots you've taken here. I love it. We saw some Cannon Beach there.
Yes.
Saw some great things, all of what Oregon has to offer. What brings you the most personal joy in shooting these types of images?
Yeah, I think, it's really the challenges that set this type of photography apart. I think, the last couple of days and preparing for this, I was thinking about, what are those challenges that make this type of photography unique? And I think the first thing is the equipment. It is definitely an investment. It's thankfully prices have come down in the past few years as housings have become, more in demand across the world. But getting the equipment is kind of step one, and I think that's fun for someone who likes to tinker with a product. And then I think step two is you have to be really comfortable with the water. I love the water. Being a surfer, I have just a strong physical and spiritual connection to the water. I love being in it, but at the same time, it's really challenging. I know you can see here some of the images of me swimming underneath the waves. You need to be a really strong swimmer. You need to be really confident in your water skills, being able to spot rip currents, read waves, communicate with surfers. And then for the freshwater photography, lakes and rivers, you need to be able to identify your safe entry and exit points, and then take into account the water temperature. The ocean year round here in the Pacific Northwest kind of ranges from 40s to 50s. And the freshwater, lakes and rivers can be as cold as, 32 degrees. And I venture out in the winter sometimes and get into ice covered lakes. And so, you just need to know your limits and be aware of your surroundings at all time. And then I think planning for it, as a hiker, you can, use Google Maps and satellite imagery to kind of see what a campsite or a view from a summit might look like. But with underwater photography, there are no tools to give you a sense of what it looks like under the water. And so the only chance to kind of see what is under the surface is by dropping your housing into the water. And so it's that mystery for me that I think is a real strong motivating factor. The drive for me to continue to get outside and see what this world has to provide and what lies beneath the surface. And I love bringing people that fresh perspective.
So Chris, it sounds like those challenges really do impact your approach when you're trying to get those shots or that perfect piece of video, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think some of my favorite photos or videos are actually photos and videos I didn't plan for. I just, something in the way that I was shooting or my settings, take into account, this is a great photo here where there's actually that yellow spot is actually a leaf that's floating down the river. And so I'm sitting in the river taking photos of my friend who are standing on the bridge there. And this leaf just happens to flow by. And I ended up grabbing that shot. So it's not something you can plan for. It's just being present and being physically there. And again, Christina, my friend who's fishing, and just a really wonderful image of the fish on the line. So, I think it's part of that mystery that really drives me to be outside.
I love that vantage point where it's half underwater and half above water. We've seen a lot of places here that appear to be out in nature. Do you have some favorite places that you like to shoot?
Yeah, I think your viewers are going to love this. I'm based in Portland, Oregon. So for here, when I'm shooting in Oregon, I tend to gravitate towards the ocean. I think it's a really, beautiful place to shoot. There's a beach, near Canyon Beach called Short Sands, and you're able to get the headland behind you, and it looks, really incredible when you can frame surfers in front of a headland that's covered in trees. And I think that's really unique. But in Washington, I love shooting the Alpine Lakes wilderness. I love being able to, I love the physicality of hiking into a place that's kind of far away and surprising myself with what's in the water. So Alpine Lakes wilderness is the top location. I really love shooting in the Mount Adams wilderness. As well as Olympic National Park. I went there last summer and shot in the Royal Lake Basin and just, took home some incredible images.
It really is amazing how much beauty there is around here, both in Washington and Oregon. Just incredible.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And, I love, human eyes we're kind of trained to see one world at a time. If you think about it, you look out over the sound and you see, boats and a jetty and a dock, and that's beautiful. And you look up at the night sky and you see stars and the moon, but these over-under shots really combine two worlds, and it reminds you that we are coexisting with more than one world that we see. There's that leaf shot again, beautiful, where you're able to capture sort of what's beneath the surface and what's above the surface. And I think, to me, bringing that fresh perspective and bringing people to these places otherwise, either aren't comfortable with the water or, can't afford the equipment. Bringing people into these scenes and to these locations, is something that really brings me a lot of inspiration.
Chris, you have such a great eye, and it's been such a joy to share your work with our viewers this morning. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me.
All right, if you'd like to follow Chris on Instagram, see more of his awesome work, his Instagram handle is on your screen right now. It's @ChrisInTheWater. Just some cool shots, right?
I love it.
Yeah.
I love how crystal clear that water is, too, when you see, what was her name, Christina? When she's fishing there, and you just see that line. You see her crystal clear underneath and up top. You get the fish eye and the bird's eye all at the same time.
I like how we describe that, sort of two worlds colliding just in one shot with the water, and then what you see above the water line there.
It's awesome.
Pretty cool.
Check them out on Instagram.